I'd like to call this meeting of the Joint Food Policy Board to order. Omi, let's go ahead, if you don't mind, you and Jertoya. First of all, thank you all for being here today. It sounds like Jertoya is going to be getting her feet wet, leading us this afternoon, so we're looking forward to that. Jertoya, would you go ahead and take us through roll call?
Okay, Commissioner Duncan Walker,
Here.
Commissioner Harvey Ward,
Here.
County Commissioner Chestnut,
Here.
Dr. Fuentes,
Here.
Dr. Campbell.
Here.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Okay, well, our next order of business is the adoption of the agenda.
Move adoption of the agenda.
It's been moved and seconded that we adopt the agenda. Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so that motion passes. We have an agenda, and a good agenda it is. I'm going to go ahead and move on to our first business discussion item, which is the change of the co-chair. Change of the co-chair with a recommendation that the Joint City-County Food System Policy Board discuss and elect the next vice chair of the board from the county. Is there a nomination? Commissioner Ward.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I nominate Commissioner Chuck Chestnut.
Oh, wow. Imagine that. Well, Commissioner, what say you? Do you accept your nomination?
I accept.
Wonderful. Is there a need to take a vote on me, or is this the
Yes,
formal
you
thing
have
that we
to,
have to
yeah.
do? Wonderful. All right, well, with that being said, we have a nomination that has been made to the floor that we elect Commissioner Chuck Chestnut as the next co-chair for the Joint Food Policy Board. Is there any, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Voted himself.
We need a seconder, excuse me. Do we have a second for the motion? Thank you very much. Now, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries unanimously. Welcome
Thank
to the
you.
co-chair of this amazing board,
Thank you.
Commissioner Chestnut. All right. Moving right along to item E2, we have the resignation of Dr. Catherine Campbell from the Joint City-County Food System Policy Board with the recommendation that we accept that resignation. And that's really sad for me, but I totally understand. Dr. Campbell, would you like to say anything?
No, I've just been honored to be a part of the board and really identify with the mission of the board. And when I initially joined, I had intended to step down at the original sunset date.
For sure.
So we're now at that point, so.
Absolutely, and it's totally understandable. We have gone just a little bit beyond, and your plate is full.
It's a little
So,
full.
absolutely, while we hate to see you go, we definitely understand, and we hope that at some point, should this board continue into the future, that you'll be able to join us at some of the things that we do, or join us in some of our conversations, as you've been an incredible asset.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. So it sounds like we need do we have to, Omi, vote to accept her resignation? Okay, all right. Well, is there a motion on the floor to accept?
I move we accept the resignation.
Okay. It has been motioned and seconded that we accept the resignation of Dr. Campbell from the Joint City-County Food System. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We hate to see you go, but we thank you so much for your service, Dr. Campbell, and we look forward to working with you in the future. Okay. Next item, E3, discussion of the board's purpose, goals, and division of staff labor, with a recommendation that the Joint City-County Food System Policy Board discuss and clarify the purpose of the joint board, its specific goals that it aims to achieve, and the division of labor expected between city and county staff to accomplish the goals. All right. So this board was formed a few years back with a very specific vision and mission, and I know that Commissioner Prezia is not here to kind of champion this discussion, but she was one of the champions of the Food Policy Board. It's something that is very near and dear to her heart. It was also championed by Commissioner Gail Johnson as well, but there were a couple of people on this commission, both city and county, who were around when those initial discussions were held and when this board was formulated. So we've reached the point now where, coming towards what's supposedly the end of this board, we really want to take a moment to clarify what the vision and the mission is, whether this is going to be a board that continues to move forward, and et cetera. So I invite anybody now who'd like to hit their lights and begin to shed a little light on what your thoughts are in terms of the direction of this board and the goals moving forward. Commissioner Ward, do I see your light?
Yes, please. Thank you, Madam Chair. When we first set this board to work, there were and there continue to be lots of food issues before both the Gainesville City Commission and the Alachua County Board of County Commissioners that need attention, and there's a tremendous amount of expertise in the community, as well as a tremendous amount of need in the larger community. We have staff experts on both sides of the street, and I think the idea was to kind of bring all that together in a way that we could have discussions and point both commissions in directions that would be fruitful in making food policy and alleviating need in the community. I don't think anybody has changed the way they feel about things and their desire to be helpful in this, but I don't know that we're providing that help at this extra stage of work. Certainly, I had hoped that what this could be is kind of a clearinghouse where we could send direction back to the constituent commissions, but I'm not sure we're doing that. And I take full responsibility for that. I mean, I've been here 4 or 5 meetings now, and it's hard to get it scheduled. It's hard to, I don't know that in the meetings that I've attended that we've sent actual work back out from this board to get done. And I know I have not actively provided direction back to staff on either side of the street. So maybe there certainly is a potential for good work to be done, but I don't know that this particular board is necessary to get that good work done, I guess is what I'm saying.
Understood.
Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Thank you.
Did I see any other lights? Is that, yes, thank you.
I think the purpose of this board is to explore ways of securing food systems sustainability in our community, writ large, but certainly that should include Gainesville and Alachua County, as we should all be seeing the top issue for voters in this election cycle is how am I meeting my basic needs? And those basic needs include housing, they include food. Let's just leave it at that for now. And so, so we need to be exploring. It doesn't have to be we. I mean, if the fundamental question here is, do we need this food policy board? I don't know. But I would certainly hope that our elected officials in the city and county commission are talking to each other to see how are we going to help people in our community have access to affordable and healthy food. And it has to be both. And there's multiple ways of doing it, and some of these ways have been explored. Certainly when I think about things like zero waste or composting, they're critically important, certainly in a country like ours where so much food gets diverted to waste. And so it is directly, if not tangentially, related to the issue of food sustainability. But I think the relevance of this committee is highly relevant. We need to clarify amongst ourselves why we're relevant and then communicate that to constituents in the community.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Chestnut.
Thank you. Since I'm the newbie on this committee, I think that our last meeting, we extended it, and then I guess the city commission decided that it was, at that point, I guess not useful anymore. And so on the county side, I've learned a lot in this short period of time in terms of serving, in terms of the issues. Um, but, you know, on our side, we love working with the city and especially with joint type of meetings and getting things done. But I understand also that we have no authority to give directions to staff. We have to take it then back to our regular boards to get that done. And then if one approves and then the other doesn't approve, then we're in a quagmire. I mean, I'm just being honest with you. So, you know, I'm not against it, but I think that I'm all for it. And there are people out there who are suffering, you know, with inflation, everything else, and you know, we've talked about East Gainesville a lot in terms of being a food desert, that kind of stuff, and all that. And trying to adjust or try to keep folks abreast of what's going on in the community. So I think it has done a great job, to be honest with you. But I understand the authority part of it, that we have no authority, and that's where staff then doesn't have the direction to really go do anything. They'd have to wait maybe to our next meeting before they can do anything. So, you know, but maybe some will take it upon themselves and just do the research and get it done. But I just think that, you know, I was a part of that vote to extend it. So I thought it was useful and important to this community as a whole, and to educate others about this particular topic, because I think a lot of people are not really aware of the issues and problems that exist in this community. And so just bringing awareness to it, I think, is the important part, and letting folks know where to get help, and letting them know that there are places to go to get food. So I think that that's very, very important. So those are my comments, but didn't sound like much. But anyway, you know, so whatever the will is, you know, it's okay with me, but I still would like to somehow keep attention to this issue, because it's very important.
Absolutely. Thank you, Commissioner Chestnut.
Thank you.
Dr. Campbell, did I see your light?
Yeah, thank you. I know I'm a lame duck, but I recently completed a study of expert consensus on core, basically things that need to happen in communities for food systems resilience. And one of the things was that there should be a food policy council or board that has a formal relationship with local government, that, in this following Commissioner Chestnut's comment is sort of interesting, that has some mechanism to implement policy. So to elevate concerns of members of the community and needs into a formal policymaking process. And so that's just an observation of, you know, this is, having a formal mechanism is important, and having that connection with local government, because, you know, in the work that I do with food systems, very often people in local government may not understand all of the nuance of food systems, and having this sort of a board helps bring knowledge, as you mentioned, and sort of helps to set priorities. I don't know how this sort of general observation fits in with the role of this particular board and the sort of tension that we're talking about between the city and the county, and no, you know, specific authority. But I just wanted to share that observation, that I think some sort of formal mechanism is really important, because otherwise it's just members of the community meeting amongst themselves, but it doesn't necessarily filter back.
Thank you so much for that, Dr. Campbell. Dr. Fuentes.
Thank you. So my question is actually for Dr. Campbell, and really I'm asking this on behalf of others who might be joining us, who might be curious, who may or may not know, just in case we've lost somebody. What is food systems? What is food resilience? Why should we care?
Coming in with the easy question.
I mean, just the regular average citizen, why are we wasting our time with these issues? Are we wasting our times? I'm hearing you say, no, we're not, but explain it in the simplest terms, if you would, please.
Okay, well, food systems, is everything from farm to people's plates to health outcomes, all of the inputs that go into it, the policies that constrain it. And so the food system affects our farmers, it affects access to food, it affects our waste stream, it affects health outcomes. So I think, I'm biased because it is my job, but I think it's incredibly important, and I see it as the linchpin of public health in our society today is the nature of the food system. It connects also with issues of justice and equity. So I think focusing on the food system is incredibly important. Food systems resilience, I think we saw with COVID-19 as well as, the hurricane and the importance of resilience, which means, among other things, it's the ability of a system to respond to shocks and unanticipated events. And so building a resilient local food system puts checks in place that if there is a hurricane, if there is a pandemic, we have the ability to respond to those kinds of shocks. And so if one part of the system has a problem, there are other things in place that can help account for it so that, I think any city has, they say 3 days of food in it, any large city, and we're reliant on these really long supply chains. And so having a resilient local food system can provide access to food in times when those long supply chains are disrupted, and then as well can do some of the addressing disparities in access to food in a day-to-day way.
So if I could, I'm going to interpret it in a way that, or I'm going to maybe try to interpret what you just said the way I would explain it to my middle schooler or a middle schooler, which is, so if a pandemic comes or a hurricane comes and suddenly supply chains are disrupted and the local grocery store isn't open, or it's open but they've run out of food, or some run out of the foods that we're used to, what else can we rely upon to be able to feed ourselves and our family, and what can we get access to that is cheap and affordable? And what I'm hearing you say, because I heard the word local, is that a lot of this has to do with local farming, locally produced goods. It may be, I've heard Carissa Raskin talk before about food forest in the area, which I know our city or county commission have been working on, or supporting local farming, perhaps promoting local gardens in the area that have nutrient dense, that are producing nutrient dense foods that can get us through a difficult time. Is this what you're talking about?
Yeah, there's sort of two sides to it. So, part of it is the food production side, and then the other side is sort of people accessing the food. And so, even in cases where there's not a hurricane, there are people in our community that don't have access to food. And so it's addressing those sort of day-to-day needs and thinking about, how can we more equitably ensure access to food in residents that may not have that, whether that's a grocery store, a mobile market, the corner store initiatives. A lot of the things we've been talking about is in an ongoing way, how are people getting access to food?
And the health outcomes, I also
Exactly,
think, which is really
yeah.
important, because if the only thing you're getting access to is fast foods, chips, chocolate. I don't want to minimize this. We all like our chocolate. We may like Doritos or Lay's potato chips every so often, but it shouldn't be people's primary source of nutrient.
Yeah. And in a moment of self-promotion, shameless self-promotion, the study that I did, I created a food system policy audit tool that goes through the 8 dimensions of food systems resilience and has examples of policies that then the intention was for it to be able to be used by any local government, but they could go through and say, we're interested in, food access. Do we have policies in place that expert consensus shows will support that, or supporting our agricultural producers or sustainability or those sorts of things. And so I'd be happy to share that with the board.
Thank you. Maybe a future presentation?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Very much, Dr. Fuentes, and thank you very much as well, Dr. Campbell. I certainly cannot speak for the entire board, but I will say for myself, I would definitely love to receive that information and quite possibly see that at a future presentation. I think that could prove to be extremely valuable, given the work that this board has begun to do, and should it continue, that, you know, we might be able to make some really good use of that policy framework that you put forward. I am really curious to hear from staff, because we have extrapolated a little bit about our ideas of what it is we believe the goals have been, what we think they should be, what policy is, and thank you for asking that very good question, Dr. Fuentes. Why are we doing this? Because I think a lot of people have asked that question. I think some people have oversimplified the idea of, why are we talking about food? But I think we just heard some real stringent points of clarity come from Dr. Fuentes in explaining the need to be resilient in a pandemic, the need to be able to address existing disparities, et cetera, et cetera. So thank you for asking that and allowing that to come forward. When we begin to consider this board and how it impacts staff, I want us to kind of think a little bit about that now, and I wonder if we can get someone from both sides of the street to come to us and talk a little bit about the division of labor. And we're talking candidly here today, because the truth of the matter is, as much as all of us understand the importance of this type of conversation and creating policy around food, I think what all of us understand and probably don't want to do is to overburden the staff that is already working diligently on a lot of other things. I think probably all of us want to find solutions to how we may be able to do or support this work without doing something that is going to be burdensome to staff. So I wonder if we may have at least one person from both sides of the street come to us and speak to us candidly about what this experience has been like for you. The division of staff labor, because I think you all have brought to us over the duration of this board, since I have been on it, some really interesting things. You've done a lot of great research and brought a lot of things before us. I'm really, really curious to hear from you about what it is like having to try to do this work in the current context of the existing board. Anybody can start. Don't all run to the microphone.
Hello, everyone. Assistant Director of Strategy, Planning, and Innovation for the City of Gainesville. My name is Carissa Raskin. So I first would just like to say how excited I was that we, as a city and a county, came together to put together a food systems policy board. It's something that we haven't, prior to Commissioner Gail Johnson, we hadn't, as the city, had a board focused on this, or really had many initiatives that I was aware of focused specifically around food systems. And so when we came together with the county to do this work, it was quite exciting. Speaking candidly, I think, Commissioner Ward, you made an excellent point at our last meeting about some of the challenges with just being able to actually do the work I think that this board and our larger boards would like to see us do, because just of the way it's situated, and that this board can't provide direct direction, and so it becomes almost a matter of a waiting game, if you will, of getting interest from this board, but then needing clarification from both of our boards, and then coming back to see kind of, as you know, we're doing the work, is that work still aligned with what the direction was? And it just ends up being a little bit of a drawn out process. It was, I think, helpful to have some specific goals for projects that we were originally tasked with looking at. And one thing that didn't get completely clarified in the beginning was which entity, if there was going to be a division of labor, which entity was taking lead on which initiative, and really the why behind that. There also wasn't necessarily, and this reigns true for many initiatives, but always a challenge, just not knowing necessarily what the funding mechanism would be to move some of these items forward. And so which board do we bring the research to? How do we get that moved forward? I want to back up just a little bit, and I am guilty. I am the culprit in some ways of this board because I would make extensive presentations to the city commission during some of our meetings. And I think that it was taking, there is so much work to be done and so many ways to address it. We didn't have a space really designated for that conversation to take place. And in order to facilitate a true food system, we needed it to extend beyond the city limits, thus bringing in the county. And so between having so many different projects and having it be such a long presentation, the idea of this board was that it would provide a space to focus a little bit more on a few projects and have a smaller group together with subject matter experts from the community working on them. I personally have some ideas of how we may shift in a model to get some of this work done going forwards, but I don't want to speak out of turn and offer any suggestions, and certainly we would have to flesh it out as staff. But just kind of seeing how we've operated and where some of our stumbling blocks have been. If you'd like me to share any thoughts, I'd be more than happy to after my colleague speaks.
I greatly appreciate that, Carissa, because that is an opportunity that I'd like to afford to both sides of the street. Thank you for bringing that up.
Sure.
Thank you so much. Thank you for your thoughts.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
Sean McClendon, Alachua County Economic Development and Food System Manager. Very pleased to be part of the effort that went into helping to manage and provide programming into the Food System Policy Board. When we started out, it was conceived that whoever the chair was, the hosting duties for the meetings would fall to that entity. So for the first few months of the Food System Policy Board, that honor fell upon my shoulders to make sure meetings were posted, make sure people were available for meetings, and make sure that we coordinated calendars and schedules and that the minutes were taken and the agendas were posted in alignment with what the board wanted to see. Because we're a fairly small shop and we don't have much administrative support over at our we also had to do the programming work as well. So we had to set up the presentation in the meeting space that we had. We had to run the IT. We didn't have the people in the back. We just had me. That's why you saw me getting up and down a lot of times, because I had to manage the Zoom meeting as well as manage the meeting and present the programming at the same time. So we were a little more stretched on the county side in terms of being able to accommodate, but it was a pleasure to do that work and to highlight at least what we were responsible for out of the Food System Policy Board projects.
Thank you, Sean. Thank you. Did you have more? I'm sorry.
No, and however, the board or a future iteration of the board would like to expand or focus their efforts going forward, regardless of the division of labor and the administrative requirements, it's very important work. Mm-hmm. So staff are here to be of service to you all. So whatever direction you wish to go, we will be here to support you. So that's my only message for you all today.
Thank you so much, Sean. Greatly appreciate it. Is there any other staff that would like to speak to the Division of Labor? Thank you.
Hello, Chair and others. I'm Kathleen Pagan. I'm a planner with Alachua County Growth Management. And I just wanted to mention, as has been stated, the importance of the food system to public health. And earlier today, I received a phone call from Courtney Oliver. She's one of the staff at our Department of Health. And there will be soon the update of 2 health plans. One is called the Community Health Improvement Plan, and the other is the Community Health Assessment. We know about the importance of quality food for health. You probably know the old saying, let food be thy medicine, or we are what we eat. And many of our citizens cannot access healthy food. And I'll just mention my work in this area started in 2009 when the county added a community health element to our comprehensive plan. And that year also, Commissioner Cynthia Chestnut was at that time on the county commission, and she organized a meeting that was facilitated by the ICMA, International County Managers Association, on the topic of childhood obesity. Courtney Oliver's first work at the health department was in a position called Healthiest Weight, because we know the data shows that we need to address the problem, especially if in childhood, if obesity becomes a health issue, it can, have major impacts throughout the life. So I think it's a very important work, and when I can, I like to help in a community garden, and I'm part of a food recovery project with my faith community. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Pagan. And thank you to all of the staff who really has done some incredible work over the duration of this board. It certainly has not been lost on me. I've seen it, and I wasn't even around from the beginning. But it has been very, very clear that you guys have really thrown yourself into it. It appears that you like it as well. You really enjoy doing this work, and that shows. And I'm really grateful for the ideas that you've brought forward, the innovative things that you've brought to us, and I greatly appreciate you. Greatly, greatly appreciate you. Even more, I appreciate your candor today, because I think everybody in this room wants to find the way to be able to address the disparities, to be able to take a look at community and public health in real ways as food is concerned. And so with that, I want to turn to my colleagues now. We know that staff is going to want to have a bit of conversation with us about potential models or ideas as to how we can effectively move forward. And I don't want to get ahead of myself here, but it sounds like I'm kind of hearing a consensus from the dais that we want to be efficient and we want to be effective. And perhaps the shape of or the existing form of this board is not the most efficient. And that it does not allow us to make the types of decisions or provide the mechanisms and funding and support that we need to in this way. So I want to now turn to you all and ask if we have any ideas about the mechanisms or models that we may be able to employ to continue to do this essential and good work. Anyone? Do I see a light? Commissioner Ward, I see your light.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So if I could go back a little bit, talk about the history of what we've been doing since 2018 and some of the progress that we made on this side of the street, I think that might help cast a good light to move forward. We convened what started as a sunshine meeting between me and Commissioner Johnson in June of 2018. So we were both relatively new to the commission at that point, and we had Ms. Raskin was there. We had a whole bunch of folks down in the basement. Mr. McClendon was there. I think Ms. McCon was probably there. We were over full in the meeting room down there, with the intent of how do we move forward with some good ideas for food systems in the community. We had folks from IFAS. County Commissioner Prizia was there representing IFAS at the time, before she was county commissioner. And from that, over the course of a couple of 3, 4 now years, we find ourselves here. And in the meantime, on our side of the street, we've managed to change the land development code to make it easier to grow food in your front yard, which is kind of a big deal, following on a model from the city of Orlando. We got that all the way through. We have flourishing public gardens, city gardens, in a variety of places throughout the community. I can't remember the number. I want to say it's 8. Does that sound right? Okay. Right, so the edible groves that are planted in parks in east and southwest Gainesville, northeast, due east, I think, and southwest, are happening and thriving in the community. The biggest project probably was the, Member Fuentes, you referenced the Zero Waste Committee. We spent a year and a half, almost 2 years, meeting and talking about how to minimize waste in the community, and a big part of that was establishing food waste systems, or eliminating wasting good food that people could use. We've codified that, so we have made, I think, a fair bit of progress. We've passed resolutions about honeybee protections in our city. There have been a variety of things that we've done at the city of Gainesville, and I am certain that the county has done some things as well. But we don't always know what each other are doing in that regard. So I'm wondering if a good path forward for us, rather than as a go forth and do this staff board, would be a clearinghouse of information that we, if we then choose to, as constituent commissioners, go back to our commissions and say, here's what's happening on the other side of the street. We had a conversation about how we might be able to help with that. Instead of necessarily developing policy here, if we use this as an information clearinghouse for the city of Gainesville, Alachua County, Santa Fe College, IFAS/UF, and any other, we've talked about adding HBCU representation, and what other organizations are doing and can do to help each other, then we don't burden staff, because logistically we can't burden staff with direction from this board. If we act as a clearinghouse and maybe meet on a quarterly basis, then we're not canceling meetings back and forth because we can't fit them in, and we're not overburdening staff, but we are keeping food systems at the forefront, or at least somewhere on deck as part of the discussion to go back to the commissions. I think that might be a useful way for us to move forward that gets around the problem of assigning work to staff, since we can't actually do that. Just a thought, but I'm open to plenty of other ideas too.
Any other member comment? Okay. Okay. Absolutely, absolutely. So right now, from the dais, we have the idea of functioning as more so of a clearinghouse where we bring ideas, we share ideas amongst ourselves, alleviate any type of staff burden, and whatever gets taken back to the city can be voted on, or policy can be created around there, and vice versa at the county. Am I understanding you correctly, Commissioner Ward?
I would make that motion.
You would make that motion? Okay, do you mind if we do this? I'd like to hear from staff, because they too have some, there may be something that we want to include in that motion from staff. So I know that Carissa mentioned that she had an idea for a potential model moving forward. I don't know if anyone from the county does it well as well, but Carissa, can we ask you to come forward now and share your thoughts?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So Commissioner Ward actually has part of the idea that I had in my head. That was a component of it. The ability, and I believe that this was a big component of the discussion last month, or when we last met, was the idea of being able to provide a space where both of our commissions and our other institutions are really providing updates. And I believe I want to add in here a community element to this, because Commissioner Ward, when we had those discussions in 2018, and I hosted February 2019 a workshop in the downtown public library about food systems, and it was a community-based workshop where many of us were there with about 100 Gainesville neighbors. to talk about these issues. The idea of having a collaborative space for work like this did certainly come up, and when it came back to the city commission, it was actually the guidance at that time, which was early 2019, that we not formalize, or that the city not chair a board, a food system policy board per se, but rather that we as staff liaise with those in the community who are very much doing this work and bring back to our commission information about what is happening in the community, and thus a what is known as the Food Systems Coalition of Greater Gainesville, which is, it's not a nonprofit, it's not a formal entity, it's something that I have facilitated for years, and it's really that space where community representatives from nonprofits, from farms, from just neighbors, we come together. We used to do it in person and then the pandemic, but that's one of the gathering spaces where a lot of these ideas at least come to my attention. So I was hopeful in a model that we might be able to offer space for community members who are doing this great work, whether it's affiliated with a college, a nonprofit, whomever, to share that with our respective commissions. And we don't currently have that mechanism. So that was a big part of what I was suggesting in a model. And at quarterly meetings, if there could be a space carved out for those types of presentations, I think it could be extremely informative. We'll know how to maximize on where the commissions respectively would like staff to do work, because we could see better what is already happening in the community and where that value add could just push us over the hump a little bit to really make some monumental change. My other thought was simply around, and I think actually that's a better model than what I had originally come up with, because then both boards can consider them respectively and determine whether or not funds chose to be put towards those projects, and then we're working in collaboration with those entities. I had another idea, but I feel this one is a little bit stronger, so I'd rather not overshadow this idea, if that's okay. But
Absolutely.
I think that could work.
Thank you very much, Carissa. I just wanted a point of clarity for the Food Systems Coalition of Greater Gainesville. This is an organization that is already in existence, a group of individuals that are currently doing this work. They've been in existence, Carissa, roughly how long?
I just want to clarify, it's not a technical organization. It's not a 501c3. It is just a group similar to what Kathleen Pagan was mentioning. We have a Healthiest Communities Coalition. We have a Safety Net Collaborative. Basically, good people in the community doing good work. We want to make sure we're all talking the same language.
For sure.
So we have been meeting since 2019, the Food Systems Coalition of Greater Gainesville, on a monthly basis. And there's not membership. People are allowed to come in when they can, step out when they need to. We meet monthly, and it's just a space. It's really a space just for sharing.
Wonderful, wonderful. I like that a lot. Does your idea also, with regards to your community element, because obviously my heart just lit up when you said that, because I'm big on community engagement and how we pull them to the table. So this sounds like one way. Are you also envisioning being able to pull the community who may not be quote unquote experts in some way? And it's just a basic kind of question. Don't have to go too much in detail, but is that also part of your thought process, Carissa?
Yes, absolutely. And we encourage people to come to the meetings simply to learn and to share their ideas, even if they didn't consider themselves a part of a food system. Everybody eats, everybody's part of a food system, therefore you're an expert in some component of it. That's what I try to tell people. I could go, I could pitch more ideas of even innovative ways to have funding mechanisms for microgrant projects to pilot test innovative food system solutions based on the ideas that are presented at the quarterly meetings to a joint board. There could be a discussion around setting aside funds from the city and the county specific for microgrants for innovative projects. That's kind of going down a whole nother rabbit hole though. But if we were to do it in that way, it would potentially provide a mechanism for individuals who have experienced food insecurity, who don't necessarily see themselves as the drivers of the solution, yet they have so much lived experience, they likely have great ideas that deserve at least to be tested out. So that innovative component is something that I always kind of think about. So I guess food for thought, pun intended.
Absolutely. Thank you, Carissa.
Absolutely.
Was there anyone else who wanted to, from staff, offer an idea for a potential model moving forward? Thank you. Carissa said a mouthful. Absolutely. I want to turn now back to my colleagues here at the dais. Commissioner Ward, I know that you were ready and willing and able to put forward a motion, but before you did that, I wonder if there's anyone else. Member Fuentes.
So I'll just think out loud and speak freely, as Carissa and others have done. So I am familiar with the Food Systems Coalition. I think in the past, since its establishment, I attended a couple of meetings. And I didn't go back, not because I didn't see value in it, but because, it's the middle of a workday, I'm busy, I'm juggling all these other things. However, I have made time for this food policy board because I felt a higher level of commitment and responsibility, if you will. Plus, Sean McClendon wrote on behalf of the joint board and said, can we have someone on behalf of Santa Fe represented here? And my president said yes. It's a very different level of commitment than just a group of us who really care about food are going to get together and talk. And so, I'm just reflecting on myself and my own very personal experiences that I love the Food Systems Coalition, but I think you're already attracting people they're the converted. They already know, they're diehard, they want to work together and share what they're doing. This is a different group. This is a different group at a different level, or maybe it's not about levels, but it has a different function. And so we need the sharing, we need the engagement with community, but we need something in between the policymakers perhaps and the people who care in the community. And so what that level of engagement is, I'm not sure. So going back, and I am by no means the expert on this, right? I do not have expertise on food systems. I do not do research on this. I just engage in it periodically. But I know, so Dr. Campbell, I'm going to look at you. I know you've done research looking at human motivation, right? What is going to motivate us, or the ones that aren't converted, the ones that don't care, the ones that don't know? What will motivate? Those are the people we need to reach. Those are really the people that need to reach, not the 50 people in the community that are diehard crazy about this. What guidance would you suggest?
I could devote the rest of my academic career on trying to answer that question.
You can get us started.
I mean, I think, knowledge and awareness is the first step at, people making changes. And so, I think to some extent, that's what Chris has been doing with the coalition, and, some mechanism to ensure that that knowledge and those voices are heard by, people here, people in the community is really important. I think, just to follow on your observation for attending the coalition versus making time to come here, I think the formal nature of this does sort of elevate it in terms of priority. And just to mention the study that we recently did, that the formal relationship with potential or actual policy making, I think, is really an important thing to think about with, this isn't merely a conversation. It's something that's intended to move to policy or action.
If I could just add as just an additional note for consideration, and this should by no means determine anything. But after our last meeting as a policy board, I went back to our college president, Dr. Paul Brody, and I said, you know, they're talking about extending this for another 2 years. Should we be part of this? Should Santa Fe be there? Am I the right person? And his answer was yes, yes, yes. And it's that formal nature that would allow me in the future to get the attention of senior administrators at the college and say, let's talk about what our contribution is to the larger food systems. I mean, we function like a tiny little city, but we are part of the county, not the city, right? Well, parts of us are in the county and parts are in the city, but there's value to the formality. Although I completely understand it requires staff time and may seem as like, oh, what are we going to do with this? All I'm trying to highlight is there's value to the formality. So thank you for listening.
Thank you, Member Fuentes. Any additional comments from the dais? Yes, Member Ward.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So hearing all of that, staff as well as members' comments, perhaps, again, we continue to function as a formal clearinghouse, meeting quarterly and carving out space on the agenda for the community food systems folks to come talk to us. And so there's always a space on the agenda for that report. But that other than that, we primarily are looking to hear what the city of Gainesville is doing, what Alachua County is doing, what IFAS is doing that might be relevant to anything we could work on at the commissions, what Santa Fe College is working on, and how we could all be helpful to each other, and what this loose coalition of community folks is doing, so that they have a direct conduit back to local government. I think that's useful. It doesn't require an enormous amount of staff work. We'll still need staff to do things like prepare agendas and that sort of thing, but we're not giving you ambiguous charges to go handle that you then have to come back to us and ask every, 4 different organizations what you're supposed to be doing. We don't want to do that. So I will move that we act as a clearinghouse board. We continue to be a formally appointed board that acts as a clearinghouse, that meets quarterly, and that we carve out space on the agenda each time for a community report.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded, everything that Commissioner Ward said, the mouthful. But formal information clearinghouse with a community element that brings in the Food Systems Coalition and other community engagement aspects that meets quarterly. Have I covered everything?
I believe so.
Okay, wonderful. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? That motion passes unanimously.
Very good.
I think we have a new pathway forward. Thank you all. Thank you so much. All right, next order of business is the city's food waste diversion update. With a recommendation that the Joint City-County Food System Policy Board hear the information presentation from staff and no action is required. Thank you so much. Who's presenting this? Carissa? Thank you, Carissa.
Okay, hello again, Madam Chair and Board. So this is a presentation that we had actually put together for the Zero Waste Subcommittee that Commissioner Ward referenced earlier. It's a little bit of information about the work that we were striving to do around food waste reduction and understanding kind of how the parties out in the community who stand to be impacted by the food waste diversion ordinance kind of felt about the initiative and what the landscape was in terms of what was already happening. And our office in Strategy Planning and Innovation conducted surveys together with the Division of Solid Waste and Public Works. I have to give a shout out. Brandy Stone, who's in a new role as the Director of Community Health, played a big part in this. And so we'll just share a little bit of the data that we collected today. So again, this was back at the tail end of last year, really around like November, that we put together this initiative based on the solid waste ordinance that was still in draft form at the time. It passed into policy on June 2nd of this year, and the ordinance is set to roll out next year. The purpose of this initiative, though, was to find out from the organizations that were deemed as recipient organizations of food waste, as well as businesses that were considered food generating businesses, just how much food did they feel they were currently wasting? Were the nonprofits and the other recipient organizations going to be able to receive that food? What were some of the underlying challenges that, we could put this policy in place, but once it went to implementation, what was the landscape that we were looking at? And we included the survey instruments as part of the backup if you are interested in looking at that. But I'll go fairly quickly. I do want to mention that we had a number of different organizations that were assisting us with this. We had some of our local restaurants, we had the Repurpose Project, we had Zero Waste Gainesville, University of Florida, and others that really played a big role in helping us to collect the data. And we also had a team of student volunteers that went from business to business collecting the data as well and contacting the nonprofits. So it was a community effort. We had two separate surveys. One was on the food donation recipient end, and so any entity that may consider a food pantry, the food bank certainly, that would be receiving of food that would be donated by a business, whether that be a restaurant, a grocery store. We provided them with a survey and collected information back from 17 organizations. Most of them were food pantries, but we also wanted to know, because there are different types of ways that food waste recipients might operate. Some of them are going to have a food pantry that only stocks non-perishables. Others are going to be serving actual meals. Others of them are providing home deliveries of bagged groceries for individuals with mobility challenges who can't get out. And so they all would have a slightly different need. And so you have a breakdown here of what the different entities, how they operate, what they were offering. Most of the entities did say that they would like to increase the amount of clients that they're serving and or the amount of food. However, not all of them would necessarily be able to increase the number of clients they are serving or the amount of food or the type of food. And the most significant barriers that we heard over and over again were really storage space, followed up by refrigeration. Those were the two biggest things that people were having trouble with. More food donations was a barrier in some cases, but the type of food donation, they just wouldn't be able to accept certain types of food because they don't have the right infrastructure within their food pantry and or do not have the electricity hookup or can't afford the bill for the electricity to put a refrigerator in there or a walk-in. So those were some of the issues. And then in terms of being able to actually receive the human resources that go into being able to receive it, it's not just the volunteers and the staff to get it there, but the transportation of getting it to the place and then taking the inventory and making sure everything is in a food safe environment. And there's a fairly lengthy process to be a good food pantry that can take all of this in. We also did some specific analysis of where Bread of the Mighty Food Bank was at, and that organization has undergone some changes over the last year or two, and this data was collected back in November. But they do at Bread of the Mighty have a program called the Gainesville Harvest Program that they enveloped from another community entity some time ago, and that is a mechanism for getting food donations directly from businesses. They are not able to accept any prepared food, though. So really the biggest gap in our food waste reception is we have a lot of entities that can take the non-perishables, the canned goods and the boxed goods, things that you get in a typical food drive, but the leftovers from a grocery store that would be perishable, produce, things of that nature, it's much more complicated dairy. They're things that are often more sought after, but they're also the hardest for a pantry to be able to offer. From the food generating business side of things, we were able to talk to about 25 businesses. And the way the ordinance is structured is that if a business generates more than 1 cubic yard of waste per week, that is what then would have them need to be compliant with the food waste ordinance. Anything under that doesn't necessarily make it to that point. And the way to think about that amount is 2 of the large trash bins, like the largest size of the trash bins full is equal to 1 cubic yard. And so of the businesses that we were able to talk to, we found about 10 businesses that it would apply to. Many of them, about half of them, were already donating food to organizations, which is a great sign. We're glad that the organizations are already connected to those businesses. A lot of them were not donating for compost yet, but the way that the ordinance is structured, the hierarchy goes that it would first go to humans and then to animals and then to biofuels and then to compost. So we want more connection with the nonprofits anyway. On the business side of things, there was also a barrier regarding storage and refrigeration, because if you think about it from a business model, it is not necessarily good for their inventory to store food that they know they're not going to sell overnight. If they're trying to clear their shelves and make things ready for the next day of business, especially after the pandemic when things, their staff was extra short, taking the time to be able to make space in their fridge for wasted food to then be picked up by volunteers that they couldn't guarantee were going to actually show up to pick it up is just, it's a drain economically. So there was that, and the coordination of logistics, again, another staff drain. The transportation, the component, that was one of the big barriers. And then when we asked them about, well, how, if you did have some of those other things taken care of and you were going to donate your food, what would be the things that you need support with? And really the packaging of it was something that a lot of the businesses were saying that, if we can't donate the food in large pans, then when we're supposed to donate it to nonprofits that are going to just be able to hand it out quickly because they don't have refrigeration, we would need the packaging on our end to be able to hand it out. And is the packaging that we're using sustainable? Because this is all part of the zero waste goal. And so there were like multifaceted layers of complication. But these were some of the things that people are already thinking about. And so just to quickly wrap up, we presented this to the City Commission earlier this year in February, and the guidance that the City Commission provided to staff was that we were going to develop and implement an educational campaign on food waste reduction and recovery, and I can say that that is very much in the works, and I believe Tom Strickland, yes, is here, who is working adamantly on that and has done a lot of great work. So we have communications going out and the education is starting. And also we are looking for opportunities to assist businesses with their end of the process as well. We also, I'll mention the City of Gainesville has recently participated in a challenge with Leading Cities, which is a nonprofit based out of Boston. And we were part of the Urban Food Challenge, and we're in the process of exploring innovative models with specific vendors to see how we might be able to assist in some of those logistical connections between the business and the nonprofit, as well as potentially with neighbors to be able to actually make use of the food waste themselves. Wasted food, I should say, wasted food, not food waste, very different. And I believe that is it for my presentation. Quick summary. Okay, fantastic. So on this item for the food mobility update, we do not have a major update to provide at this time. The city commission and staff are still working on various plans regarding a larger economic development project, and there is the potential for a food hub of some sorts, whether it's a hub, a grocery store, that hasn't really been defined yet because the project is still so early in the process. But as that project continues to move forward, we would hope to be able to have updates, and that is actually the same update that we have on the community grocery store. They're kind of one and the same for this project.
Okay, so So you've covered items E6 then?
I did, hoping to move us along.
Okay, all right. Okay, to take us to E7, community education update on the plants of the month.
Mr. Chair.
Yes,
Sean
sir.
McClendon, Alachua County Economic Development Food System Manager. It is October, and it is arugula month. Did you know, Mr. Chair, that
No.
a cup of fresh arugula leaves has 25 calories, 3.65 grams of carbohydrates, about 2.5 grams of protein, and 1.6 grams of dietary fiber?
Did not know that.
Yes, now you do. Today in October is a great month to plant arugula, and we encourage everyone to do so.
Okay, all right, thank you. Okay, E8, good food purchasing program update.
Mr. Chair, Sean McClendon again. Very pleased to report that the Alachua County Sheriff's Office has adopted the Good Food Purchasing Program as part of its requirements for receiving a new food vendor at the county jail. So they are implementing those requirements as we speak. The County Commission was keenly interested in following the lead of the Alachua County School Board in the Good Food Purchasing Program, and then it encourages local foods, it encourages ethical food sourcing. There's a variety of metrics that go along with it, as well as goal setting. These goals have been achieved, and now Alachua County would like to seek to encourage other entities within the community, especially ones that are big institutional food purchasers, such as at the University of Florida or our local healthcare providers, to also look at a similar type of metric system going forward.
Okay. Thank you. Turn it back over to the chair.
Thank you so much. Are we on the food mobility hub? Oh,
Yeah, we're on E9, E9.
I was gone for 2 minutes. Wow, you guys moved this right along. Thank you so much. I'm actually sorry that I missed that. The food shed map update.
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. Okay, so this is where we are. Thank you very much. I'm glad I didn't miss that because I'm very excited to hear about what you have, Sean.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank
Sean
you.
McClendon again, Alachua County. For the food shed map, we don't have the beta site ready to experiment with yet with the public. However, we have been contacted by the University of Florida College of Engineering. We have a professor there that is actually utilizing some of the base layer information because they're actually beginning to do the analysis work and how does this work in conjunction with transportation networks. When we use the term food desert in a community, it very generally describes where that problem lies based upon a census tract. And that's not always the best way of describing whether or not a person can get to and find food accessible or not in the community. But with a more refined map, we'll be able to have data points such as we've been able to pull together with the food shed map, and with an eye towards transportation networks like UF Civil Engineering, they will be able to better answer that question: where are there transportation barriers to it? And that was part of the original intent, both to serve the food system map, to serve the consumer side, people that need to know where can I get good healthy food, where are there food pantries, but also on the analysis and on the policy side to be able to use those data points that are supported by the community just to ask questions of it and put layers of information on top of each other to say, aha, now we have a better understanding of how these things link together and where there are gaps between them. So we're just now starting to see some of the fruits of that effort. So we're very happy with that.
Thank you, Sean. Do we have any idea when the beta site will be up and running?
I hope very soon. I keep knocking on our colleague's door and asking that very question. But yes, they're very busy. They are working on it, and I hope to be able to have good news soon, Madam Chair.
I'm sure. Thank you so much, Sean. We look forward to that. Thank you. All right, next is E10, Healthy Corner Store update.
Yes, Madam Chair, that's Alachua County again. So I don't have a formal update for you. I can tell you that we are coming back to the Board of County Commissioners in early December because we have secured a funding source for this work. We're going to be applying $750,000 towards this programming. So we'll bring that full program and the description of how it works back to the Board of County Commissioners for approval very soon, but it's still in draft mode, and we don't want to talk about that until we're absolutely certain how we want to structure it and how we want to roll it out. But the Healthy Corner Store is all about trying to put food into communities that don't have ready access to it. And that's the broader goal of what we want to achieve with this.
Thank you once again, Sean. I know that was something that several months back, you guys were floating some really interesting ideas, and it even gone back to the drawing board to kind of re-envision how this work would get done. So we're really excited to hear about how it's going to roll out. Thank you once again, Sean. All right, so moving right along to public comment. Are there any members of the public that are here who wish to comment? Step forward. Thank you for joining us today.
I've never done this before, so let me know if I'm doing it wrong. My name is Sherry Krinke. I am a resident of Island Grove, which is the southeasternmost corner of Alachua County. I'm here kind of on behalf of the eastern corridor along 301 of the county. So beyond the city limits, beyond the city of Gainesville. 10 unincorporated communities out there, and I am the volunteer coordinator at the Hawthorne Area Resource Center, which tries to meet many of the needs of the members of those communities out that way. And primarily it is a food pantry, but we do try to help people with other needs, and that is the basis of my interest in this meeting and this committee. I also am on the board for the Hawthorne Area Community Foundation. I just want to make sure that our region is included with all of your plans. We really just generally feel like, well, it's just overwhelmingly resource insecure. We have food insecurity. You know, Alachua County is 4th in the state, 10th in the country. We are a food desert. Out there, there's barriers to broadband and digital literacy and transportation, all of which limits upward mobility of the entire region. And that all kind of culminates in lack of economic opportunity and lack of economic stability. Again, with the food pantry, we have seen a dramatic increase, not just because of the pandemic. What we saw prior to my time being there was an increase during the pandemic, but now that we're sort of, you know, quote unquote, out of it, we're still continuing to see an increase. In 2021, for the entire year, we had made 6,699 distributions for a total of 260,830 pounds of food. This year, 9 months into 2022, that has already been exceeded at 6,925 distributions and 275,340 pounds of food. So our numbers just keep increasing, but we still have the same limitations. The community still sees the same limitations. I have tried to expand our reach by reaching out to the University of Florida's Family Nutrition Program in August. We really haven't heard back, but they've done a survey of the region and our the food access that we do have. And just in closing, I would just want to say that I hope that you guys do find a creative solution to the slow communication, the division of labor, and the implementation. As you guys were speaking, I thought maybe if there was a food systems group or stakeholder dashboard where food pantries out in these regions could kind of collaborate in between meetings and things like that. So thank you for your time. I appreciate the work, and I do hope that it continues.
Thank you so much. Can you remind us of what your name was?
Sherry Krinke.
Sherry Krinke?
Mm-hmm. Krienke, and then that's Sherry, Sherri.
Thank you so much, Ms. Krinke. Thank you for joining this conversation today. And I think it's pretty exciting where we are headed now. And I think quite possibly we've opened up a door for greater engagement. Hopefully you'll be able to join some of these conversations and bring your wealth of knowledge and experience. We certainly want to make sure we're able to help funnel some resources and some energy and some ideas out into that Hawthorne area. We thank you so much for the work that you're doing and what you've brought forward to us today. Thank you, Ms. Krinke. And are there any other members of the public who wish to comment? Seeing none, we will move to...
I
Member comment?
I'm a member,
Okay,
I know I'm a member of the board, but I also have a public comment that
Sure.
follows on very nicely with what Ms. Sherry Krinky was saying. This may be arugula month, but it's also an ideal time to go out and collect roselle and explore ways that we can grow food with that. So I am here to share that this Saturday, Santa Fe College, in collaboration with Florida Organic Growers, will be in Hawthorne. Miss Sherry, will be in your backyard. I've got flyers for you. We will be in Hawthorne at Frog Song Organic Farms, Roselle Festival. So you may have gone to a blueberry festival, you may have gone to a watermelon festival. This is Roselle. It's a crop that has been commonly used in the Caribbean and in West Africa, can be used in teas and drinks, in desserts and foods, and it's grown rather easily in our area, something that any of us could be growing in our own backyard. So I'd be happy to share more things with you digitally so you can share on your social media network, but I hope some of you are able to join us. I think that the people that will most have fun are children. We have a lineup of a lot of activities for children there, also workshops for people in the community so they can explore how to grow roselle and what to do with it, just to supplement, whatever other nutrition that they're consuming. So hope you can join us.
thank you so much. This looks really exciting. I'm gonna try to make this. This is great. Thank you for
Or,
bringing this forward.
send kids, send grandkids.
For sure.
We'll also have the Alachua County Farm to School program there. I mean,
Nice.
seriously, kids, I wish my kids are little. I'm gonna try to recruit my older kids to come. But it'll be a wonderful time for small children also.
Thank you so much, Dr. Fuentes, for this. Are there any other member comments? Okay. With that being said, there was something that I failed to do at the very top of the meeting, and I'm hoping that my colleagues will oblige me here. I did not get an approval of the minutes. Can we go back? You move approval of the minutes? Thank you so much. It's been moved and seconded that we approve the minutes. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you so much. We have approved minutes. We've gone through a meeting at kind of lightning speed today. I'm impressed. Chair Chestnut, don't put me to shame. My goodness. Stepped out of the minute for 2 seconds and the meeting was over. And so our next meeting date, I know we've changed some things today. What bearing does that have on the next meeting date? Can staff speak to that? Carissa? Thank you.
Effective today, wow, that was loud. Effective today, or November 1st, I think the board will technically sunset, and we have now kind of restructured how the board will function. A couple of clarifying questions for myself and Mr. McClendon that can help us do the work. I do believe that we will need an item on consent by at least the city commission to approve staff to do work to modify an interlocal agreement. So if that is, I can work on that item and make sure that that goes back to our city commission and respectively county commission.
Absolutely.
So we can do that, and then within, just so we can make fast work of it, we were discussing that the board will be a clearinghouse. So just for clarification purposes, and the current interlocal agreement, we have it stated that it is a voting board. What I have heard today, and please correct me if I'm wrong, is that going forward, the board will not necessarily be a voting board, that it will be more of a space to hear and absorb and then bring back to our respective institutions, and therefore a vote to direct staff will not be necessary. I just want to make sure I put that clearly into the agreement. Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay, and that we are agreeing on a quarterly meeting schedule to begin after the start of the new year. So, okay, we'll work on that as well. And then, Mr. McClendon, are there any clarifying questions that you have on your end? No? Okay.
Wonderful.
Then I think the next step would be that we have this go, as long as our city and county commission approve of staff do the work, staff will do the rewrite, will work between our two organizations, legal teams, to make sure everything is right, and then we would bring it back to each board respectively for a signature. And then we would be able to reconvene. And at that, once it is signed, then we can begin the recruitment process for the vacant seats, as Dr. Campbell, and we have other vacant seats that have yet to be filled as well. We can do that work as soon as the interlocal is reinstated.
Absolutely. Thank you, Carissa.
Absolutely.
Well, with no further business, I now call this meeting adjourned. Thank you so much, colleagues and public.